Range names in Excel give us a convenient way to refer to cells, and they make formulas easier to read. As an example, we'll look at this homework problem from class with the fishes. So if I wanted to name a cell, okay, I can click on the cell. You can see what the name of that cell is up in the name box. Okay, so this cell is just indexed by its location, D3, its cell location. But I can give it a name. Let's call it birth rate. It's always good practice to avoid spaces when you're naming things. This is from computer programming. Spaces create problems. So you don't want to use spaces. So I'll use an underscore. So I'll name that cell birth rate. So now when I click on the cell, the name shows up here. And I can also refer to that cell by its name. So for example, if I want to calculate the number of births, well, that's going to be the starting fish times the birth rate, right? So this is going to be, let's put the starting fish in here like we did before. I could have named starting fish, but I didn't do that. So for the births, it's going to be the birth rate. And you can see the autocomplete shows up down here. And I want to do multiply that times the starting fish. So you can see this just makes things easier to interpret when you're troubleshooting or you want to read your spreadsheet and see what's going on, or maybe someone else's spreadsheet. It's just good for clarity. So I could have done this with the deaths and the harvested as well. It wasn't so important with this problem, but we'll see that it's more useful as we get as we address more complex problems. So that's one way to enter names, is just by entering the name in the name box. And if I click on the arrow here, I'll get all of the names that are in the workbook. And one thing to keep in mind is if I define a name here, it's actually going to be workbook wide. So the same name will apply in different sheets of my workbook. I can also name groups of cells, whether they're rows and columns. For example, I could name this collection of grades homework 1. Let's call it HW_1. Okay. So now if I highlight or select these cells, see the name occurs over here, and I can do operations with those cells as follows. For example, I could find the sum of HW1. There it is, and notice it's going to highlight when I do that. So that gives a convenient way to refer to those cells. I can also do this kind of thing. So I can name this collection of cells. It's a range, right? Let's just call it grades. So now, for example, I could sum all of the grades. I don't know if you'd ever want to do that. Right? But it certainly makes your formula easy to read and easy to understand. I want to note that these cells that we've referred to, this range, we've given it a name. The name is grades. But if we wanted to refer to this range in terms of the cells themselves, we would say it's from D9 all the way to K13. So if we go from D9 to K13, and we'll often see Excel refer to cells this way. Here it is down here, D9:K13. That means we're going from cell D9, which is here, all the way to K13. Now if I highlight, actually I don't even need to highlight them, but come over here make sure you're in the Formulas tab here, and look under Define Name, and here's a way we can edit the names. I'm not going to do that now, but I just want to show you how Excel is referring to the names for the cells. So if I look at, for example, let's look at grades here. So you can see here, grades, the range is D9 to K13, as I've indicated over here, with some other notation and syntax in here. Let me tell you what that means. Well, you know what the dollar signs mean. The dollar signs mean that it's locking the row and the column, but there's the colon, and then you're locking the row and column. So it's really just D9 to K13. Now, what this problem 1 with the exclamation point is letting us know is that it's sheet 1. Well, it's the sheet called problem 1. So problem 1 is the sheet, and then the exclamation point is indicating that it's a sheet, and then you've got D9 to K13. Sometimes we'll have a spreadsheet where we have column names already indicated in the rows of one of the sheet itself, and we'd like to use those for names. So as an example, I'm going to use this spreadsheet stock.xlx, which is in our shared folder. In class 2, I put that in there. So if you want to open that up. So what I'd like to do is name this column to be the date, name this one. These are stock prices for Microsoft and General Motors. Name this one as Microsoft and this one as GM. There's an easy way to do that. So what I'm going to do is highlight the entire range. Now I'll show you a trick for highlighting range of cells when you have a lot of cells here. I mean, I could just do this kind of thing, right? But that's kind of tedious. Let's show you a different way. So if I select the first cell in the upper left, and it's Shift, Command, and your arrow keys. So I'm going to hit Shift, Command, or be Control on a PC, and then use the arrow keys to move over. Now if I hit the down arrow key, it highlights all of those cells. So having done that, I'm going to go to the Formulas tab, and then under Define Name, well actually it's not Define Name, Create from Selection. And now it's going to ask us, do you want to create names using the top row here, or do you want to use the left column? Because the left column, those could be names too. Well, we don't want to name using the left column. We want to use the top row. So I'll deselect left column, and I'll do that. And now you can see under the name box we have date, right? And then we also have GM and Microsoft. So what it does is it uses the row headers as names, which is what we want. So for now I could, for example, say find the sum of GM, or maybe you'd like to find the average. That would be more likely, the average return of the Microsoft. One thing about Excel, it's not case sensitive with regard to names. Kind of a quirk, or maybe a convenience. Okay? So that's how we create names using the Create from Selection. We have to select all the cells, and then we make sure that we're in the Formulas tab here, right? So we need the Formulas tab, and then Create from Selection. Here's another example using this spreadsheet share data, which is also in the shared folder. If I wanted to create names for these stocks, the shares and the price of various stocks, let's see, I'm going to go over to Formulas and Create from Selection. I'll use the top row. So now I've got these are going to be the shares, and you can see they're named up here, and this is the price. So the total value is going to be the shares times the price, and I can use my names in the formula. So equal shares, and you can see it highlights the entire column, but it knows you just want the first two cells there. Okay. So for homework, I'd like you to do problems 1, 2, and 4 in Winston from Chapter 2. So here is a snapshot of those problems. I know some of you are waiting on your text. So you want to do 1, 2, and 4. And this is also going